There's a phone on a coffee table, and there's a man on a couch looking at it. He's not going to pick it up. He wants to, that's the whole thing. He wants to call his friend, not make a friend. He has one, a real one, 20 years of history, a best man's toast, the whole file. He just wants to call the guy, and somehow the phone weighs 600 pounds. Tomorrow morning, he'll lift dumbbells that weigh less than this phone. This is the smallest want a man can have, and he can't do it. And most of us have sat on this couch. Why not? That's the question, and the answer takes 100 years of our history to explain. Start with the sentence, because you know the sentence, and you've said the sentence. We should hang out sometime. We say it in parking lots, at funerals, at the end of weddings, in the cereal aisle. And here's the thing about we should hang out sometime. It has never once, in recorded history, produced a hanging out. It's not a plan. It's the opposite of a plan. It's a little ceremony we perform so we can both walk away. And we do walk away. You've seen us do it. The backward walk down the sidewalk, waving, still talking. Yeah, definitely sometime. Each step making it a little less true. By the time your friend reaches his car, sometime means never. And you both know it, and neither of you is lying exactly. You mean it. You just can't do it. Now the numbers, because this isn't one man on one couch. This is us. In 1990, 3% of American men said they had no close friends. Not few, none. By 2021, that was 15%, which means it quintupled. And the men with 10 or more close friends, the guys with a whole bench, went from 40% down to 15. Women declined too, but less. So this isn't everybody's story equally. Something happened to the men specifically. The Surgeon General reached for the word epidemic, and that's his word, not ours. When a number quintuples, you don't get to call it a personality problem. Something in our machinery broke. What you're seeing on that couch isn't a personality, and it's a trend line sitting down. And here's the machinery up close. Here's why the phone weighs 600 pounds. Say you're 40 and you want to propose a friendship. What are you going to say? Do you want to be friends? You can't say that. That's a sentence for a 7-year-old with a juice box. And there's no adult version of it. You can propose marriage. There's a ring, a knee, a script, a whole apparatus. You can propose a merger. You can propose a toast. But there's no ritual anywhere in our culture for one grown man saying to another grown man, you, specifically, Tuesdays. So we say, we should hang out sometime, which is the ritual for not saying it. The want is enormous, and the vocabulary is missing. It wasn't always missing. There are photographs in the Met, a whole collection, more than 100 studio portraits from the 1840s through 1918, of American men posing together, holding hands, arms wrapped around each other, sitting in each other's laps. In a lap, at a photographer's studio, on purpose for money, to mark the friendship. And nobody blinked. The historians who study these pictures say the poses were common, unremarkable. Affection between men wasn't a confession back then. It was furniture. These men paid a professional to document how much they liked each other. Then, the 20th century taught us restraint instead, and the lap became the handshake, and the handshake became the nod, and the nod became, we should hang out sometime. Because that intimacy was normal, the men who had it did a very American thing when the industrial cities started pulling life apart. They built infrastructure for it. Look behind our man on the couch, because his great-grandfather is standing there, and his great-grandfather is wearing a costume. He belonged to a lodge. The Odd Fellows say, the largest order in the country by 1900, 3.3 million members at their 1920s peak. At the height of what historians actually call the Golden Age of Fraternalism, roughly 40% of adult American men belong to at least one order. 40%. Sit with that. These men built marble temples on Main Street, and inside them they had rituals, degrees, regalia, secret handshakes, a gavel. They built an entire parallel civilization in costume, and the stated product of the whole operation was friendship. That's what the dues bought. The largest friendship machine ever constructed, running on schedule, so that no man would ever stand in a parking lot inventing a reason to see another man. The reason was Tuesday. The reason was always Tuesday, and this is the fact that breaks our man. His great-grandfather had a temple, a costume, a title, and a standing appointment, and 40% of men had some version of it. He can't send a text. The text is 11 words. His ancestor memorized initiation rites in a room full of columns, and he's on a couch, defeated by, "Hey, you around this week?" That's not evolution, that's demolition. You can even watch us do the dismantling inside a single sport. Between 1980 and 1993, the number of American bowlers rose 10%. Bowling was fine, bowling was up. But league bowling, same lanes, same shoes, same ball, plus other people every week, fell 40%. We kept the hobby and fired the humans. Nearly 10 million Americans bowled in leagues at the late 70s peak. By the 2022 season, barely a million of us were left. The pins are fine and the beer's fine. The Tuesday night guys who knew your name and noticed when you didn't show, that's the part we canceled. It's the lodge, dying a second death in rented shoes. Now put the jokes down, because there's a bill. In 2010, a researcher named Julianne Holt-Lunstad pooled 148 studies, 300,000 people followed over time, and measured what weak social connection does to your odds of dying early. The effect size was comparable to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. Hear that precisely. A comparable effect size across studies, not loneliness is smoking. That's the telephone game version, and the claim gets flattened almost every time it's repeated. The researcher herself keeps asking people to stop. The honest version is heavy enough. As a risk factor, disconnection sits in the same league as a serious cigarette habit. And there's a longer receipt. Harvard has been following the same men since 1938, the longest study of adult life ever run. And one finding stands over the rest. How satisfied people were with their relationships at 50 predicted their health at 80, better than their cholesterol did. Better than cholesterol. The study's director compresses it to one line. Good relationships keep us happier and healthier. So the couch, the phone, the unsent text, that isn't a social nicety our man is neglecting. That's a vital sign. So, what does the repair cost? It turns out, friendship has a posted price, measured in hours. A researcher named Jeffrey Hall ran the numbers. Roughly 50 hours of contact to make a casual friend, about 90 for real friendship, 200 plus for a close one. 200 hours sounds like a debt, but it's a recipe, because Hall found something better. The hours aren't equal. Hours spent joking around with no agenda count, far more than hours spent working side by side. Take that in slowly. The useless hours are the valuable ones. The hanging out is itself the mechanism, which is exactly what the lodge was selling. Nobody needed the fez was packaging. The product was 200 agendaless hours a year, pre-scheduled, no proposal required. The temple was never a mystery. It was a payment plan. Our great-grandfathers didn't have better hearts than we do. They had better calendars. Back to the living room. But pull back further this time, because you've only seen half the picture. Across town, there's a second living room. Another couch, another lamp, another phone lying face up on another coffee table. And leaning at that phone is the friend, the very name glowing in the first man's contacts. He wants to make the same call. He's wanted to for weeks, and he can't do it either. 2 men, 2 rooms, 1 silence, and neither of them built it. Nobody here is pathetic, and nothing in either man is defective. Jobs moved them, kids rearranged them. The lodge closed, the league folded, and the rule they both inherited said men hold still. The machinery of adult life did this, to both of them at once, which means the silence between them is nobody's verdict on anybody. Then one of them picks up the phone, and it genuinely doesn't matter which. He presses the name. That's the entire heroic act. 1 thumb, half an inch of travel. And the last thing you see isn't his face. It's the other living room, where a dark screen suddenly lights up, and a man moving faster than he's moved in years nearly takes out the coffee table getting to it. Because that's the mercy hiding inside all those numbers. If 15% of men have no one to call, then, in living rooms everywhere, phones are lying face up next to men who are waiting for exactly the call you've been assuming would bother them. The line isn't engaged. It was never engaged. So the sentence gets one small renovation. We should hang out sometime becomes Tuesday, the garage, 7 o'clock. 2 lawn chairs, 2 sodas, no agenda, and a clock quietly running toward 200. We don't need the temple back. We don't need the robes, the degrees, or, tragically, the hats. All we ever needed was the thing the temple was actually selling, and we can afford it. It was never about the lodge. It was about Tuesday. Pick a Tuesday.